There is a voice that speaks to you before any other voice has the chance. It speaks in the quiet seconds after a mistake. It speaks in the stillness before sleep when the day's failures line up like monks waiting for confession. Except this voice offers no absolution. It only offers verdicts. You know this voice well, though you may never have given it a name. It tells you that you are not enough. It tells you that you should have known better, done better, been better. It compares your present self to some imagined version of you who never stumbles, never forgets, never falters. And against that imagined self, the real you always loses. This voice feels ancient, as though it has always lived inside you. But it has not. It was built. It was assembled, sentence by sentence, from every harsh word spoken to you in childhood, every disappointed glance, every moment you learned that love seemed to depend on performance. The mind, in its confusion, decided that if it judged you first and judged you hardest, no outside judgment could ever wound you more deeply. This was its strange way of trying to protect you. But protection built from cruelty is no protection at all. It is a prison disguised as a guardian. In the Buddhist understanding, this critical voice is not your true nature. It is not the deep awareness that watches your thoughts arise and pass. It is a conditioned pattern, a habitual storm that moves across the sky of your mind. The sky itself remains untouched. The sky has never once been damaged by the storms that cross it. Today we begin a journey toward that sky. We begin by simply noticing the critic for what it is, not chasing it away, not fighting it, but seeing it clearly, the way you might notice weather changing outside a window. This noticing alone begins to loosen its grip because the critic survives only in the dark, only when it speaks unquestioned and unseen. Over these 5 parts, we will walk a path together. We will see why this critic was born. We will learn to view our failures not as evidence of brokenness, but as wounds asking to be tended. We will discover Karuna, the Buddhist quality of compassion, and learn to turn its gentle gaze upon ourselves. We will feel how this compassion dissolves the friction the ego creates, and we will arrive, finally, at a quiet alignment with who we have always truly been beneath the noise. This is not a teaching about becoming someone new. It is a teaching about remembering someone you have always been before the critic ever learned to speak. Let us begin. When you fail at something, what story does your mind tell first? For most of us, the story is moral before it is practical. We do not simply think, "This approach did not work, let me try another." We think, "This proves something true and shameful about who I am." A missed deadline becomes evidence of laziness. A broken relationship becomes evidence of unlovability. A moment of anger becomes evidence of a fundamentally flawed character. This is the mind treating failure as a verdict on your worth rather than information about your circumstances. It is a profound and painful distortion, and it is one of the deepest sources of suffering the Buddha identified. Consider a different way of seeing. Imagine that each of your recurring struggles, the pattern you keep repeating, the habit you cannot seem to release, the fear that keeps resurfacing, is not a moral defect at all. Imagine instead that it is a wounded friend. A wounded friend does not need to be scolded into healing. A wounded friend needs presence. A wounded friend needs someone to sit beside them and ask gently, "Where does it hurt, and how did this wound begin?" When we treat our recurring failures this way, something remarkable happens. We stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and we start asking, "What happened to me? And what is this part of me still trying to protect or achieve?" The procrastination that frustrates you may be a frightened part of you trying to avoid the pain of falling short. The anger that embarrasses you may be a wounded part of you trying to defend a boundary that was never honored. The withdrawal that isolates you may be a tender part of you trying to prevent further hurt. None of these patterns are moral failures. They are old strategies, formed in moments of real pain that have simply outlived their usefulness. They were wisdom once. They are only suffering now because they no longer fit the person you have become. This reframing is not an excuse to remain unchanged. It is the very thing that makes change possible. We cannot heal what we are busy condemning. The wound that is shamed only hides deeper. The wound that is met with tenderness finally has the safety to reveal itself, and in revealing itself, it can begin to close. The Buddha taught that all beings, without exception, are worthy of compassion, simply because they suffer and wish to be free from suffering. You are a being. Your recurring struggles are evidence of your suffering, not your unworthiness. They are wounded friends asking only to be seen. In the next part, we will learn how to meet them. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a quality so central to awakening that it is named alongside wisdom itself. This quality is Karuna, often translated as compassion, though the word in English carries only a fraction of its meaning. Karuna is not pity. Pity looks down upon suffering from a place of separation. Karuna kneels beside suffering as an equal, recognizing that the one who suffers and the one who witnesses are not, in truth, separate at all. Karuna is the quality of a mother who, upon seeing her child stumble, does not lecture the child about the importance of balance. She simply reaches out her hand. This is the gaze we are learning to turn upon ourselves. For most of us, this gaze feels foreign at first, even uncomfortable. We have spent so long believing that harshness is what keeps us disciplined, that mercy would make us weak or lazy. But consider this carefully. Has the harsh critic ever once healed you? Has judgment ever once dissolved a wound? Or has it only ever added a second wound on top of the first, the original pain, and then the pain of being condemned for having it? Karuna works differently. When you turn the gaze of Karuna toward your own suffering, you are not excusing harmful behavior or abandoning growth. You are creating the only conditions under which real growth has ever been possible. A plant does not grow because the gardener shouts at the soil. It grows because the gardener provides warmth, water, and patience. Try this, gently, right now. Bring to mind one thing you have been silently punishing yourself for. Instead of reaching for the familiar judgment, simply say to yourself, internally, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of what it means to be alive. May I meet this moment with kindness rather than cruelty. Notice what shifts. The harshness that once felt urgent and necessary begins to reveal itself as optional. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that you have a choice in how you respond to your own pain. The critic was never the only voice available to you. It was simply the loudest, because it had never been challenged. Karuna does not arrive instantly and permanently. It is a practice, returned to again and again, the way a musician returns to scales not because they are mastered in a day, but because mastery is built through devotion repeated over time. Each time you choose mercy over judgment, you are not performing a small act of self-indulgence. You are participating in the oldest and most transformative practice the Buddhist path offers. You are becoming, slowly, a sanctuary for your own suffering rather than its prosecutor. The ego, in Buddhist understanding, is not your enemy, though it often behaves like one. The ego is the part of the mind that clings to a fixed, separate, defended sense of self. It believes it must constantly prove its worth, defend its image, and protect itself from the threat of being seen as inadequate. This is precisely why the inner critic exists. The ego mistakenly believes that if it can criticize you before the world does, it has somehow gotten ahead of the danger. It creates friction, a constant low-grade tension, as it braces against imagined judgment from every direction, including from within. This friction is exhausting. It is the source of so much of our quiet, unnamed suffering, the background hum of never quite feeling at ease, even in moments that should bring peace. Karuna dissolves this friction, not through force, but through release. When you meet your own suffering with compassion rather than judgment, the ego no longer needs to brace for an attack, because the attack was always coming from within, and now that source has gone quiet. There is nothing left to defend against. Think of the ego as a fist clenched tightly around a stone, believing the stone must be protected at all costs. The fist grows tired, but it does not know how to release, because it believes releasing means losing something essential. Compassion does not pry the fingers open by force. It simply whispers, "You can set this down now. You were never in danger." And slowly, gently, the fingers begin to loosen on their own. This is the friction dissolving, not through battle, but through the simple absence of war. When the inner critic falls silent and Karuna takes its place, you may notice a strange and unfamiliar sensation. It might feel like spaciousness. It might feel like exhaling after holding your breath for years without realizing it. This is the ego's grip loosening, not disappearing entirely, for the ego is part of the human experience, but softening enough that it no longer rules every thought and every self-assessment. You begin to move through your days with less internal resistance. Mistakes still happen, but they no longer trigger an avalanche of self-condemnation. Old wounds still ache sometimes, but they are met with tenderness rather than reopened by judgment. The energy once spent maintaining the fortress of self-defense becomes available for something else entirely, for presence, for connection, for simply being alive without the constant friction of war against yourself. This is the gift compassion offers the ego, not its destruction, but its rest. When the critic has softened and the ego's grip has loosened, something remains. It was always there, beneath the noise, beneath the judgment, beneath the years of harsh internal dialogue. The Buddhist tradition calls this your true nature, the awareness that was never actually wounded, never actually flawed, never actually in need of the punishment it received. This is not a self you must construct. It is not an achievement you must earn through years of discipline or perfection. It is simply what remains when everything false has been gently set down, the storms pass, and the sky was always clear. This quiet alignment does not announce itself with fireworks. It arrives instead as a subtle steadiness, a felt sense that you no longer need to fight yourself to be at peace. You notice it in small moments, perhaps when you make a mistake, and your first response is curiosity rather than condemnation. Perhaps when an old wound surfaces, and instead of spiraling into shame, you simply place a hand over your own heart and offer yourself the same mercy you would offer a dear friend. This alignment is not the absence of struggle. Life continues to bring difficulty, loss, and uncertainty, for these are woven into the nature of existence itself. But the struggle no longer doubles upon itself. You suffer the original pain without adding the second arrow of self-judgment on top of it. This distinction alone transforms the texture of an entire life. What you have cultivated across these teachings is not a technique to be applied only in difficult moments. It is a relationship, the relationship between the witnessing awareness within you and the wounded, striving, beautifully imperfect self that walks through each day. When that relationship is rooted in Karuna, every part of you, even the parts you once judged most harshly, is finally welcomed home. Your inner dialogue, once a courtroom where you stood eternally accused, can become instead a sanctuary, a place where mercy is the native language and judgment is simply a visitor passing through, no longer permitted to stay. This is the quiet alignment with your true nature, not a destination reached once and held forever, but a returning, again and again, each time you choose the gentle gaze over the harsh verdict, each time you meet a wounded friend within yourself, with tenderness instead of condemnation. May you carry this gentle voice with you when you leave this place. May your self-talk become a refuge rather than a battlefield. May you remember, in your most difficult moments, that compassion was always your true nature, simply waiting beneath the noise to be remembered. Thanks for listening. Please like, comment, and share this video so others can benefit from it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to follow me on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look up your Monk Haku and you'll be able to find me. Namaste.